Harry had a little lamb.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Ні слава, ні воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм ми, браття, у своїй сторонці, душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що
Yeah, so let's get something straight right now, okay? Let's clear all this mess up. I love my hair, okay? If I bought a wig, it wouldn't be the same as the hair I have. I would buy a different wig, okay, so that it wouldn't be repeating the hair I have on my freaking head. Okay, the other thing, I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew, so there ain't no sympathy for Nazis over here. I'm also Ukrainian, okay? And I was against the invasion of Iraq because Iraq was a sovereign nation, basically unarmed, okay? And it was born on the wings of lies told by Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, and George W. Bush that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Putin is an imperialist who invaded Ukraine, annexed Crimea in 2014, invaded Ukraine a year ago today at 5 o'clock in the morning, invaded a country much smaller than Russia, much less equipped to fight the awesome Russian military. And now there are 300,000 dead people on both sides, about 150 on each side. And I am grieving for the innocent people of Ukraine, for the dead and the survivors of places like Bucha and Irpin and Mariupol and Zaporizhia, okay? I am grieving for the orphans. I am grieving for the kidnapped children. I am grieving for the elderly who have survived the Nazi invasion in Ukraine, survived the Soviet occupation of Ukraine, who fought for their independence from the Soviets, fought for their independence from Vladimir Putin's, autocratic, oligarchic, imperialistic Russia, okay? I grieve for them. Their nation and their nation's history going forward will be forever changed because their sovereignty was not respected, okay? Their freedom was not respected. Their integrity was not respected as a nation. Everybody else can go to hell, okay? I'm just so sick of it. I really am. You have, like I said yesterday, there are people on the left who are basically attention whores, okay? They don't do the right thing when no one's looking. They do the wrong thing for money, for fame, for attention, okay? And they are filling people's heads full of garbage about Nazis occupying Ukraine and about that Putin is like the good guy here. I honestly, I don't know how America got so... completely stupid. I really don't. I do know social media is a cesspool of rage. I know that. And I know that it gets really base really quick because of the intellectual gold that is fomenting and rolling around angry people's brains as they sit in front of their computers and apparently touch themselves from the porn rush they get when they're angry. I've never seen anything like it. Meanwhile, if you're worried about Nazis, we have them here, you know. We have lots of them here. As a matter of fact, all the extremist mass murders in the United States in 2022 are linked to the far right. As you probably know by now, that right-wing extremists committed every ideologically driven mass killing identified in the United States in 2022. There's a brand new report out, and it clearly shows that America needs to clean its own backyard. We have a Nazi problem, and it's right freaking here. It's right here. And if Putin says that he's denazifying the world, what makes you think he doesn't have an axe to grind with the Nazis in the United States if he's so anti-Nazi? Which, by the way, Russia was not so anti-Nazi. Stalin and the Nazis, they had a pact, they had a deal, they were appeasers of each other, okay? So, I mean, if Putin has a valid claim that 4.5 million senior citizens in Ukraine who are left to die on the side of the road in far-flung places like Mariupol are Nazis, what do you think is going to stop him from coming here to deal with our freaking Nazi problem? Because we have an awesome, awesome Nazi problem in the United States. In fact, there are alerts now for Chicago and New York City. New York City, by the way, Nazis were, this is unbelievable. Nazis were protesting Broadway this week. They were outside a play on Broadway, not off Broadway. Okay.
Well, let's be fair. What was playing?
It's called The Parade.
All right, I have no comment. I don't know.
Yeah, and they were protesting outside of a Broadway theater as the parade was, being performed in Manhattan. And now you have a warning from the ADL and other organizations that, we need to be vigilant because Nazis have declared, not American Nazis, like 3%ers and Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and Patriot Front and Adam Waffen, okay, and the whole gang on Stormfront, right? That whole group started in eastern, I think it was Utah or some crap, and they've decided that they are going to have themselves a day of hate. Yeah, they're into it. Hate is, like for them, it's like getting off. Okay, it feels that good. It feels that good. And if you really are into hate, I'll tell you what I'll do for you, okay? You make a donation to my show, and I will send you an 8x10 of me, and I will laminate it so you can use it over and over and over again, okay? I mean, people are just so disgusting. I can't even tell anymore. Like, are they tweeting at me from Red Square or some troll farm in St. Petersburg? They working for Prigozhin now? Who, by the way, you have to ask yourself, who is fighting in Ukraine? Who's actually doing the fighting in Ukraine? These are convicts, okay? These are murderers and convicts who were sent to Russian prisons that are now being told that they have one chance to get out of prison. And here's your chance. Go to Ukraine and be a meat wave. Literally, be a wave of human meat so we can discover where the Ukrainians are hunkered down trying to defend their own country from Putin's convicts. I mean, it is such a twisted understanding of what is going on in the world. And for some reason today, I have become the target of it. Me and John Cooper. I looked at John Cooper's tweet today, his Twitter feed. And he's saying, like he goes through a whole litany of the stuff he's been called this morning and asks how my day is going. I wrote down the same. It's unbelievable to me. It is just crazy. So if you're hyper, alert to Nazis, go to Chicago, fight them there, fight them in New York, because that's where they are.
A things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
This morning, Ukraine marks 1 year since Russia launched its devastating invasion. A war that's left tens of thousands of people dead, destroyed towns and cities, and driven millions from their homes, sparking the biggest refugee crisis in Europe since the end of the Second World War. This morning, President Zelensky honouring the fallen and the heroes of the war, calling February the 24th, 2022, the longest day of our lives, the hardest day of our modern history, and addressing his nation once more, saying, "We're strong. We're ready for anything. We will defeat everyone because we are Ukraine." This morning, the White House announcing a further $2 billion military aid package for Ukraine. And now China calling for a ceasefire and offering a 12-point proposal to end the conflict. The United States has warned China against providing lethal assistance to Russia and is accusing Beijing of already providing some aid to Vladimir Putin.
By making this public, we're able to help deter the PRC from going forward with a decision like this.
Putin's war has exacted a terrible toll in death and destruction, but also the trauma most Ukrainians have had to suffer, especially the youngest. 10-year-old Lisa has already experienced the worst of the war, losing her mom to shrapnel from a Russian bomb.
What has the war been like? Because many children your age have never seen a war. What is it like?
I know everything about war, she says. Missiles, bombs. War's bad for everyone. We should live in peace. Ukraine is covered with graves from the last year. Soldiers and civilians, young and old. 1 year into a war of Putin's choosing, with no end in sight, the suffering looks set to continue.
Well, it's incredible to think that this time 1 year ago, Russian troops were already on the outskirts of this city and we could hear explosions. These tanks here, though, are a reminder of what happened to Putin's army here, but also that this war, the resistance and the suffering goes on.
Yeah, there are some people who don't think that you have the right to self-defense. I don't understand. So he amasses, these tanks on the outskirts of Kiev. He invades. He actually launches an attack on an independent sovereign nation. Okay, crosses into their town, their country. Okay, bombs the crap out of them, goes after, maternity hospitals and kindergartens. The very first strike Putin took was at a kindergarten. And I remember it because I remember the lady. I remember her, the teacher. I remember her name. Her name was Butenko. Why do I remember that? Because that's very close to my maiden name. That's why. And she was a kindergarten teacher, and that was the first strike that Putin took. But, somehow Ukraine should just, suck it up and not retaliate for their dead children, or the bombing of a maternity hospital, or the bombing of a playhouse that clearly said children on the roof, so that they would know that in that playhouse there were children. And they bombed it anyway. And for some strange reason, Ukraine's supposed to lay down and take it, because if they don't, then somehow I'm a libtard, or I'm an imperialist, or something like this. I mean, honestly, do you really think that if we were attacked, we wouldn't, retaliate? Are you insane? Are you insane? Now, we had some really crappy leadership in our lifetimes. We had a W. We had a guy who said, we were attacked by Al-Qaeda, Saudi Arabians, okay? 15 of those 19 hijackers were Saudis. And so let's attack Iraq. What? Yeah, let's get on the TV and say we can't let the smoking gun be a mushroom cloud over and over and over, and lie to America and tell them that the existential threat to our freedom is coming from Iraq. Iraq. I mean, people are just, I don't know, they're cynical. I get that. But they're confused and hateful and really, really, really angry at the world that they have helped create. And, it was interesting because when I was, screaming and yelling about being, against going into Iraq, against bombing Iraq, people were calling me a Saddam lover. I didn't support the troops. I am a troop. Yeah, well, your service wasn't good enough. Oh, okay. So my service sucked. Right. 6 years of my life not good enough for you. Okay, good. So I'm a Saddam Hussein loving piece of dung because I was trying to tell you that you really need to pay attention to what the UN inspectors were saying. And they were saying there were no weapons of mass destruction there. You had UNSCOM, you had, the International Atomic Energy Agency, Hans Blix. You had all these people saying there's nothing there. And yet America was so pro-war. Now I said to them, there'll come a time when you'll realize that this was a huge, disgusting mistake. And you'll say you never supported that war. And here we are. Here we are. Same freaks, same exact group of nutbags now saying that they were against the war in Iraq. And they're pro-Putin now. I don't understand it. I really don't, except to say that there's a lot of voices out there that pretend to, be intelligent or pretend to be people who actually understand what's going on in this world, but don't. But they need attention and they need love and they need it from outside themselves, and they're going to say and do whatever puts money in their pocket, whatever gets them viewers, like Fox News. I mean, that's one of those places. It is an insane circus of lies, and everyone knows it, but there are people that will still listen to them because they believe that somehow, some way, one day they'll get some damn thing right and they'll be able to throw it in people like me's face. I don't know what it is, but listen, this deal in Ukraine, just be very, very clear. This was Putin's war of choice. Putin invaded. Putin attacked them. They didn't deserve to be attacked. They don't need to be attacked. They didn't want to be attacked. And all they're doing is defending themselves. And every single country has the right to self-determination. Every single place on this planet has the right to choose whether or not they want to live in peace or they want to attack their neighbors. Ukraine did not attack their neighbor. They never did. It's one of the most tolerant countries in the Slavic world, okay? It just is. And this idea that Putin's not the aggressor, what is wrong with you people? Really, what is wrong with you? Gary in Fort Lauderdale.
Hello, Randy.
Hello.
You'd think with the way these Republicans love the stand your ground doctrine that they'd really support Ukraine defending themselves. They must really hate democracy.
They do. They like autocrats. They like oligarchy. They're all about Vlad because Vlad apparently, supports them. So, they pay him back by passing around his propaganda, by saying things like, we're fighting Nazis.
Think what this country could be like without them.
Yeah, I do often. But it's not just them now. It's like I said, there's these people on the left who are just as disgustingly full of it as people on the right. Because
like who?
Oh, like Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald and Matt, what's his name, Aaron Mattei, and there's a whole host of them now, just literally out there telling people that Putin is innocent and the United States is the aggressor, and that we're an imperialist nation.
They're only doing it for money.
I know.
Connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Seem to be fighting still a year later a pretty lonely battle on the Republican side to wake up your own party to what they're supporting, which is Joe Biden's chief and craziest policy aim. Like, what is this?
Well, it doesn't feel very lonely from my standpoint, Tucker. We just heard Mike McCall, one of my colleagues in Congress, talk about bipartisan support for this war against Russia and Ukraine.
What?
Yeah, there's bipartisan support among the American people, and that's support for our country, our border, stopping crime in our cities, reducing inflation, and making things good in America again.
You've done none of that, okay? It's not... I mean, the phrasing there was pretty upsetting, okay? This is what's going on, though. That this is Ukraine's war against Russia in Ukraine. Ukraine is apparently committing suicide in Ukraine to declare war on Russia. I mean, this makes no sense, and it's the nonsense that passes for, some sort of a real party platform in the Republican world, okay? They are in charge of the House of Representatives. You understand, Marjorie Taylor Greene is pretty much the kingmaker now, which is sick and sad in and of itself. But here you have this woman who's saying, why are we sending money to Ukraine when we should be doing X? But she does none of that as the majority party in the United States House of Representatives. All they've done so far is 15 votes to be pick a speaker, extorted him and made him say, he's giving everything away, including the opportunity to remain speaker. One person can object to his speakership and force a vote to depose him if he does anything Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz doesn't like, anything Lauren Boebert doesn't like. And so what you have now is a Speaker of the House who is so in bed with these lunatic, fringy freaks of nature that he's giving insurrection tapes to Tucker Carlson, the head of the big lie network over there, a network that's being sued for over $4 billion, 1.6 from Dominion, and like another $2 million from Smartmatic. They are two different companies, but Fox viewers would never know that. And and so all they've done is give to Tucker Carlson 44,000 hours of security camera footage of the insurrection. I mean, I have no earthly idea, but this was the deal that Kevin McCarthy made, that he would do that, and he's doing that and jeopardizing the security of the United States Capitol by doing that, because the stuff that we saw in the January 6th Select Committee presentation was stuff that security people had sat in a room in a skiff in a secure location with Liz Cheney, with Adam Kinzinger, and with the other members of the Select Committee in order to review this footage and present the footage that would not jeopardize the evacuation route that members of the House used or would use if attacked yet again. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. So now we're going to see, how Mike Pence was taken out and where he went and where the secure location. I'm honestly, for what? I have no idea for what, but this is who they are. So after they picked the speaker by extorting the man, who agreed to be extorted just for the sake of having a little bit of power as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, they then moved on to taking down the magnetometers and voted to allow guns in committee hearings. And that's pretty much all they've accomplished. I honestly. So they sit there on the TV and they go, why are we doing this when we should be doing that? Where both things are not mutually exclusive. We are America. We can do both. We can do both. I mean, here we have a bunch of trains derailing. And instead of, going down there and preening in front of the camera with his, personally branded water and talking about how he saved the Big Ten during the China virus, swear to God, that's what Trump was talking about when he was down in East Palestine. We decided that our Secretary of Transportation, our Environmental Protection Agency ought to solve some of these problems, get the cleanup going. Number one. Number two, send the EPA administrator down there, test the water, put up, air, not purifiers, but things to measure air quality, reassure the people, the 4,700 people that live in East Palestine, that it was safe to return back to their homes, or tell them to stay away, and also get, I can't say it, Norfolk Southern, sorry, very close.
You've been very good with that. I haven't had to even go for the.
It's so hard.
Yeah,
I have a accent.
By the way, can I just say, seeing Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene on the same screen at the same time gives me anxiety. That is truly a match made in the ninth circle of hell.
But it's such a gigantic lie, this whole channel and everything that they represent. First of all, in just one sentence, she misrepresents that Ukraine was attacked by Vladimir Putin, that Vladimir Putin literally has gone in there, kidnapped their children, bombed the crap out of that place, killed old people, created like mass murder in Bucha. I mean, Mariupol is just like, it doesn't even exist anymore. There's pretty much wiping these places off the face of the earth, kind of like he did in Chechnya, which is part of Russia. Okay. But sitting there and saying that the Ukrainian people are apparently committing suicide for Vladimir Putin, I don't know how she gets there. But now they're sitting there saying that instead of, doing anything on the railroad, they're giving the money to Ukraine, which is bizarre because what they're saying is they're going to give Norfolk Southern a pass on cleaning up the mess they made. And instead, us taxpayers ought to pay for the corporate mess that they actually caused. I mean, it is so bizarre. This is what he said.
Let's pretend we'd only spent $100 billion in Ukraine so far. We know we have. What can we do with $100 billion here in the United States? Well, for one thing, and this is kind of in the news recently, we could modernize our rail system to avoid the 1,000 derailments we have every year and the mushroom clouds over Ohio that sometimes result from them. $100 billion is more than 5 times the entire discretionary budget of the Department of Transportation. There's just $13 billion in the DOT's budget for transit and less than $3 billion for Amtrak. Remember that? The artery that connects the cities on the East Coast? Then there's the FAA. That's the government agency that's supposed to prevent planes from crashing into each other and killing hundreds of Americans. The FAA got $20 billion in the last budget. $20 billion. So given that planes seem to be coming very close to hitting each other lately, it might be worth funding the FAA a little more.
Okay, so his entire premise is that corporate polluters and corporate precision railroading companies who didn't want to give 7 sick days to any of their employees, but now they have to. Yeah, Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern just gave 7 sick days to their employees paid, right, because of this bad publicity. But he's saying that we should spend our money cleaning up their mess. I thought we just did an infrastructure package that was worth more than $1 trillion. Did he just like skip over all that money? I don't know what the hell goes on with people that watch this swill. I don't know how they, can just wipe out their memories like that.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. Speak with Randi. 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The fact of the matter is sometimes hate speech does inspire hate crimes, and we are currently living in a world filled with hate speech.
Jewish hate messages littered across Nashville this weekend. Several neighborhoods say they found the flyers in their mailboxes and their driveway.
If you feel like you have heard that story before, it is because you have. This past weekend, neighborhoods in Houston, Texas, Eugene, Oregon, Daytona Beach, Florida, Norfolk, Virginia, and Nashville, Tennessee all had anti-Semitic flyer drops. Organized acts of hate like this appear to be happening with increasing regularity. This weekend, Chicago police are urging Jewish and other religious communities to be extra vigilant because a neo-Nazi group has declared Saturday as a, quote, day of hate.
Great.
They are encouraging their members and like-minded individuals to engage in anti-Semitic acts of vandalism, like flyering and posting about it online to grow their following. And all this comes just 1 week after a suspect in Los Angeles was arrested for shooting 2 Jewish men as they left religious services. Now, the police have a laundry list of really disgusting anti-Semitic messages that this alleged shooter sent in the years leading up to that attack. I am not going to repeat them here. But the one that is worth noting was that at one point, the suspect texted a classmate an image of this anti-Semitic flyer, one that says every single aspect of the COVID agenda is Jewish. That is the same style of anti-Semitic flyer that we saw distributed across the country just this weekend.
Right. They're leaving these things. They fill up little baggies. Swear to God. I've seen it. I'm here. I'm in Florida. Okay. They fill up little baggies with rocks and, gravel, and they put their anti-Semitic crap in the baggie, and then they throw it on your lawn. Okay, and it's happening all across the United States. You better clean up your own backyard before you start pointing at sovereign nations and saying they got a Nazi problem. I've never seen anything like this. I really never have, where the propaganda is so strong with these little droids. Okay, the propaganda is strong with them, and they just repeat any stinking thing that they think they know as pure fact about the invasion of a sovereign nation who's been independent for only 30 years, okay, independent of the Soviet Union, independent of Vladimir Putin, had some really bad presidents. I mean, the fourth president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, okay, this guy is living in Russia now. Okay, that's who he is. They had some of the most corrupt, disgusting. Yanukovych, remember the Black Ledger? Remember Yanukovych's freaking gold toilets and his mansion, and he was stealing like crazy from them. So what did Ukraine do? They turned around. They, in a landslide, voted for the least politician-like person they could choose, and they picked Zelensky, who is a Jew. And all these lunatic, fringy people sitting there saying, oh, well, Putin had no choice. He had to go in there because they have a Nazi problem. We have the Nazi problem. We're the ones that are literally feeding and clothing and housing Nazis. We have a huge Nazi problem. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, had dinner with a Nazi, with Nick Fuentes, invited him to Magalocco. Okay, to dine with him.
It's one thing to hear it out of Tucker's mouth, but when I hear it in like real life, I'll hear, I'm with Russia because Ukraine's Nazis. And then they'll leave it at that, huge smile on their face, walk away, chest puffed out like they won an argument. It's insane.
It's insane. It's dangerous. It's wrong. It's ugly. It's, listen, but it's an epidemic in this country.
If Joe Biden or Vladimir Putin were running for president of the United States in 2024, who would you vote for?
Well, not Joe Biden.
That goes to show how, how warped,
Putin at least has some principles. From my,
what are those?
Outside view, he loves his country. He loves his country. Very similar to Trump in a sense.
Oh, my God. He loves his country. So much so that he's sacrificing Russian nationals in meat waves for cannon fodder. He uses Russian children, for Russian 18-year-old. Russian jails are being emptied. He's got this Prigozhin guy's mercenary corps, these militia dudes, the Wagner, literally recruiting from jails and sending them in as cannon fodder. Meat waves, the Ukrainians call them, okay? I mean, these are young men and children whose fathers have been dragoons into the service of a dictator for the people who are afraid to speak. Because if you speak up in Russia, you go to jail. Ask Navalny. Poison. Seriously, I don't think anybody in this audience even knows what it was like in the Soviet Union. I don't think they have any recollection of what the Cold War was like. I don't think they understand that you couldn't sing. You weren't allowed to listen to music in the Soviet Union. I mean, it was like, the most behind the Iron Curtain. This was a nightmare. And the people who are in Ukraine and some of the older people in Russia who, yes, I feel bad for, they have lived through World War II. They've lived through the Soviet Empire. And now they're experiencing war again because Vladimir Putin has some, I don't know, retarded version in his mind of a white Christian Slavic Europe. Because that's what he's about, That's what this is. And they just repeat this crap, like the white Christians do, like white nationalists do, about Vladimir Putin is protecting the white Christian Slavic tradition by bombing people who considered them to be their brothers. Oh, my God. This is the end of a world for people in Russia and Ukraine. And Moldova, believe it or not, this tiny little sliver of poverty, that's what Moldova is. In fact, you know, this is the thing about living in New York. You see all these waves of immigrants and you know exactly who's, you know, fleeing where because you see the new waves come through New York. It's like the first place that you see immigrants, like when there's an earthquake in Haiti, or when there's trouble in Bangladesh, or when there's people fleeing Russia, they come to the city, right? And so all of a sudden you started seeing these women from Moldova, and they're gorgeous, but you started seeing them, and they didn't have any passports. Their passports were being taken from them and held by Russian pimps. Seriously. Well, anyway, Putin wants Transnistria, which is a little sliver of Moldova, and he also would like to have for himself, he always wanted Estonia, but he would like to see, other parts of Europe be given to him. And if he can't have them given to him, he will take them. Listen, this man is an imperialist. And if that's what you're looking for to be angry at, if you're looking for an imperialist who thinks that, white Christian nationalism, which is real Nazi thinking, if you ask me, is the way to go, he's your guy. And these freaking Nazis in our country, they're part of it. They're all part of it. I listen to some of the most disgusting swill be said. And I watch some of the most outrageous crap. Okay, so, I was telling you, there's going to be a day of hate in New York, okay? Here, this is Oren Siegel. He's the head of the Anti-Defamation League. All right.
What is the day of hate that Chicago police are warning about?
So a couple of weeks ago at ADL, we identified some extremists talking about wanting to, choose this date tomorrow to, do their flyering, their bannering, their protests, and to target the Jewish community in particular. I will just say this concept of a day of hate, when you look at the recent past, every day has been a day of hate. This has been a past couple years of massive amounts of high levels of anti-Semitic incidents and other forms of hate. So this is in some ways not unique, but when you are following up 2 Jews being shot in Los Angeles, when there are these other incidents that are occurring, we don't have a luxury to just sort of downplay this as another day. We have to make sure that communities are taking every steps that they can to make sure that they're protecting themselves, and law enforcement is sending people to make sure that those communities feel safe.
Oh, I don't know about that, Oren. I really don't. This is Queens, New York, okay?
Proud Boys don't have to pay for the fare. No, Proud Boys don't have to pay for the fare.
We're special, thank you.
You don't have to pay for the fare.
There they are.
From your tax.
Proud Boys don't have to pay for the fare.
No, thank you.
That is insane. Proud Boys don't have to pay for the fare.
$3. Son, I just need you to go out.
Oh, I have to pay for the fare, but they don't? Right. Is that the situation you're saying?
That's correct.
That's correct. That was the New York City Police. That was NYPD telling this woman that the Proud Boys don't have to pay for the fare to ride the train, but she does. So I don't know if I would look to law enforcement. I think I would look to yourself.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created
equal to the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Help is on the way. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Everybody.
Червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину піднімемо, а ми нашу славну Україну, гей, гей, розвеселимо. Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася. небеса, а ми тую червону калину піднімемо, а ми нашу славну Україну, гей, гей, розвеселимо. Ой, у тузі червона калина покалилася, чогось наша слава Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину піднімемо, а ми нашу славу Україну, гей, гей, розвеселимо.
Yeah. Okay. Any doubt in your mind? Any doubt in your mind? Like who I would be rooting for here? Any doubt? Okay then. Thank you. Rich in Denver.
Hey, Randy. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday, you bastard.
I'm very sorry for all the haters on you, but
Have you seen it?
I don't do Twitter or F book. I just take your word for it, and I know that you subject yourself for all of us.
I do.
Willingly.
I do. I do. And they're so nasty, and I try to just be explanatory is what. But then the intellectual gold that just spews from their keyboard is really quite something. It's like you're ugly. Oh, hey, that's really genius. That's genius, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're really using that gray power, that 10%, and it's probably even less than that.
It's sad.
Hey, Rand, sorry, go ahead.
It's just sad. I don't know where they're tweeting from. Like, you get the feeling that some of them are bots, some of them are trolls, some of them are in St. Petersburg, some of them are in Red Square. You just get the feeling that something bad is going on social media, and that the people who own these platforms just don't give a rat's ass,
Hey, maybe Randy. Maybe it's a 400-pound man on his bed in New Jersey. Yeah. Slava Ukraine. Love you, my queen. And Malcolm Nance was on the other day. I was telling Brett. Welcome back, by the way, to Brett. I guess he had a wonderful vacation, well deserved, because he didn't get to see his mom. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
That
for
was
that.
awesome.
Indeed.
But Malcolm Nance was telling Michelangelo Senior, Dino Bidala, and he was asking him about how much longer do you think the war will go, another 2 years. And he said, Malcolm Nance said, when Ukraine gets these M1 Abrams and trained up on these Leopard tanks and these other tanks, he basically said in so many words that they're going to kick the Russians' front line and destroy them. When these tanks, he called it what is the term for the spring uprising? He said, it's going to be basically the spring uprising when the Russian tanks, or when the donated tanks and the tanks start rolling, that basically it's going to turn the war and it's going to destroy. It's going to destroy Russia. It's going to basically.
It's sad. That's right. And I do feel bad for Russians. I really do. They've been through hell too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're lied to repeatedly.
They've been hoodwinked. Right.
The state-run media there is sick. It's really sick. And if you've ever watched, their channel, Russia One,
Russia TV.
Oh my, not RT. That we had here. That was another, propaganda outfit. But the real stuff over there in Russia One. Those warmongers. They're the ones that are sitting there saying, nuclear war and Putin's too soft. And meanwhile, they're running through bodies. I mean, literally meat waves of humans. It is the saddest, sickest thing. So that they're recruiting out of, Siberian jails, really. Going there and telling these guys, you have no choice, either die here in this prison and, don't get fed, or go to the front line and be cannon fodder. And some of them are choosing to be cannon fodder thinking they could escape or that they'll come back. And people, Russian mothers are just, freaking out. Their sons are not coming back. They're calling them on the phone and telling them, we're nothing but cannon fodder. They don't give a damn about us. We're not armed. We're not trained. The people we're serving with are a bunch of drunks. Everybody here is drinking vodka from morning till night. They're raping women. Mom, get me out of here. I mean, it's horrendous.
It's sad.
It's so bad.
It's sickening. Yeah. You know what they ought to do, Randy, and I don't know if there's enough Russians to guard them, but once they let them out, they ought to. Well, I guess they were doing some of that earlier in the war. They basically just throw themselves to the Ukrainians and say, "We'll help you beat this bastard."
There are some that are doing that. There are people that are switching sides. Obviously, I mean, there's very little difference. It's kind of like it's brother on brother, basically. I mean, there's Ukrainians speak Russian, Russians speak Ukrainian. Right. And it's a very similar, it's a very similar Slavic life. It's a similar. I mean, they had to ban the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine because they were propagandizing people, and they are Russian Orthodox for the most part. So, the whole thing is such a distinct, avoidable mess that Putin created in the last, waning days of his. And now Prigozhin, this guy from Wagner, knows they're running out of ammunition. They really are. They're running out. And so Prigozhin and this guy from Chechnya that Putin puppeted, that he put in place after the Chechen war. Okay, this guy named Ramzan Kadyrov. Okay, this guy's a killer too. I mean, he's just brutal. And the two of them are now conspiring to see who's next in line after Putin. So they're talking about coupping him. So it's just a mess. It's he's going to get his just desserts. Like I said, Malcolm Nance was like to underestimate the power of these tanks. That they'll basically be like, And one other thing, I wanted to call in the other day about that Georgia witness. She reminded me of Rand was the Ted Bundy women who went to his trial, and they were just like all gooey-eyed and wide-eyed and doe-eyed and like, oh, he's such a good-looking man, which he was, but, he couldn't have killed all those women, And the one woman, his wife, he proposed to her in court, but these women were all hoodwinked, and they said, I can't believe he did this, what that lady was saying about Lynette Graham, and Rudy, that she was starstruck.
Good to be lying, They're just too gleaming,
She was starstruck. There's no doubt about it. I mean, completely and utterly starstruck. I think the gravity of what she's weighing was lost on her. That she didn't quite get that her grand jury was recommending whether or not, for the first time in American history, a United States past president or any president would be indicted for insurrection against his own country. I mean, she just was too goofy, too
young. Her 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, it was. It absolutely was her 15 minutes. But, the good thing is that the judge in Fulton County weighed in on the content of what she shared. And while Trump's lawyers are saying they're going to use her in their case to show that the grand jury can't be trusted or whatever they're going to use it for to delay, and that will happen because now that has to be litigated. The judge said she was within bounds.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We can't live like this, right? Something has to be done to tear out extremism, root and branch. And yet it feels like we're getting farther from that as opposed to closer.
There are so many issues, I think, in our country about exposure to hate without friction, right? The lack of accountability when somebody engages in an insurrection or a hate crime or a violent mass killing. There's somehow a debate about that after it happens. There's no immediate reckoning or understanding of what's happening in the community. It immediately gets politicized. That does not help us in the fight against this type of hatred.
I also feel like there's like a almost pornographic lust for rage. And this idea that the flyers that we were talking about, the idea that younger people, I don't actually know, that groups of people are going around and throwing anti-Semitic flyers into people's front yards and, at them in cities across this country and then trying to grow their online followers.
That's right.
Through the imagery of these anti-Semitic acts of terror, really. What does that tell you about society and the way in which there seems to be some sick enjoyment in terms of terrorizing people?
We're in a selfie culture. And frankly, that culture also impacts and animates the way extremists operate. So when you talk about flyers being put on lawns of people's homes or banners being dropped off of freeways,
yes,
or harassment of people in the street, like we saw just a couple of days ago, not too far from the studios here at a theater, showing a play about anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
What they're doing is not just targeting a community, they're filming it.
Yeah.
They're making sure that there's propaganda value so then when they signal back to their communities online in order to keep people engaged. And by the way, they're also getting cryptocurrency and other money in order to continue to do this type of harassment. Extremism, anti-Semitism, and bigotry today is frankly a form of entertainment.
Wow.
And they have ways to make sure that people are constantly engaged. And that's why this is such a serious threat. That's why not only the Jewish community, the LGBTQ community, and others feel vulnerable, because accountability is far behind our ability to communicate.
It's so true. I mean, and there is no accountability at all for these rage addicts. I mean, they can just rage and rage and rage all day and, groupthink themselves into, more rage. And, nobody is there to police them. Nobody is there to tell them calm down. There's no mom in the room. There's no parent in the room. There's no adult in the room when these keyboard warriors, these armchair warriors who often fail because they've been blinded by some fairy tale, just rage at you, and rage online and form these groups and wear Hawaiian shirts and start screaming and yelling at rabbis. I mean, I just... There's a video, I couldn't even pull it because the amount of cursing in it. If I bleeped it all, it would make no sense. Like, you wouldn't even understand what these people were saying. But it was a bunch of boogaloo boys, who, by the way, the left, these attention whores on the left have hosted these groups. Jimmy Dore just sidles up to Boogaloo Boys, has absolutely no problem letting them, spew their crap all over his air. And these are supposed to be the progressives, the aggressive progressives, right? But anyway, there was a bunch of them wearing their stupid looking Hawaiian shirts in Florida, just raging at, people getting out of the synagogue, just raging at them, screaming at them, yelling at them, cursing at them, just just because they're addicted to it. They're addicted to the rush of rage. They're addicted to, it's kind of like endorphins for them. I mean, I never saw anything like that. And where is the Republican Party on this? I mean, this is national security. This is America. This is, hatred. This turns into violence. Every single act of extremist mass murder that we've seen in 2022 was committed by anti-Semitic white nationalists, every single one of them. All U.S. extremist mass killings in 2022 were linked to far-right groups, okay? And, there's the right wing is very busy banning books, making you safe from drag shows or some such crap, and, keeping women from their reproductive health care. This is all that they're concerned about. So, even when you have an obvious, train derailment and a bunch of them, like 1,000 of them every single year, they sit on their hands and do nothing about it until, Eastern Ohio, who voted for them, who voted for Trump, is actually afraid to go home. They're actually afraid to drink the water. They're actually afraid to breathe the air. Then all of a sudden, it's like, well, if we weren't sending money to Ukraine, no, how about holding the railroads accountable for the mess they make? How about that? How about, doing something about precision railroading, which is, keep the trains moving at all costs? Because now we have this NTSB report, by the way, that says this wasn't even an accident. It was completely preventable, okay?
This was 100% preventable.
Nearly 3 weeks after a toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio.
We call things accidents. There is no accident. Every single event that we investigate is preventable.
The National Transportation Safety Board released a preliminary report on the incident.
We know What derailed the train? We have a lot of questions.
Questions that have investigators focusing on the overheating of one of the car's wheel set and bearing.
The recorded temperature of the bearing increased from 38 degrees Fahrenheit above the ambient temperature, which at the time was 10 degrees Fahrenheit, to 103 degrees above ambient just 10 miles later.
According to the report, the temperature of the bearing increased as it passed 2 defect sensors along the tracks, but not high enough to trigger an audible alarm. And it wasn't until the train passed a 3rd sensor with a temperature of over 253 degrees Fahrenheit above the ambient temperature, it triggered an audible alarm, alerting the crew to stop the train.
The engineer at the time was following another train and was already in dynamic braking to slow behind the train. So he increased the brake application to further slow and stop the train. We have no evidence that the crew did anything wrong.
Right.
In all, 38 cars derailed, including 11 tank cars carrying hazardous materials that subsequently ignited, fueling fires. The NTSB says it will investigate Norfolk Southern's use of the sensors.
Had there been a detector earlier, that derailment may not have occurred.
So it wasn't an accident. It was preventable. All the derailments in this country are preventable. It's just that the way that these, multi-billion-dollar rail companies do business is that instead of complementing human sensors, human detection, they replaced human detection with automated sensors, which didn't send a signal to stop the train until that bearing that we all saw sparking up the railway. We saw it. Got to over 238 degrees. I told you, it was a bearing that caught fire. That's a maintenance issue, number one. And number two, it's an automation issue because they use automation to replace humans instead of to complement humans. It's all for profit. The whole thing is just all for profit. All so they could buy their own damn stocks back. That's what it's about.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Speak to Randi. Call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right. Ray in Oregon.
Hit it one more time.
That's me.
Time listener since the time of Air America, around 2006 or 7. I love you. I'm a first-time caller. My thing has to do with these tanks that are going in. Your caller earlier had said something, and I agree, the tanks are going to get positive effect, but I really feel that the airplanes that Iran's trying to supply Russia is just going to make that benefit of the new tanks short-lived. I believe that I feel that there's some escalation and that Putin will.
Well, did you see the news today that said? Now I know China wants to have it both ways. They want to appear neutral, while they buy, Russian oil, and increase their purchases from Russia by 60%. But they still want to appear neutral. But this was interesting. 2 things happened yesterday. The United Nations General Assembly, not the Security Council, because Russia has a veto on the Security Council, which is, it just shows you that the United Nations, the Security Council is broken. It's broken. That you could have people sit on the Security Council voting on, their destruction of a sovereign nation and to, be able to veto anything. But the General Assembly voted yesterday to have Russia withdraw from Ukraine. That was one thing. And the 7 countries that voted to, against that were like Eritrea and Mali. You know what I mean? It wasn't, and also that China has called for a ceasefire.
Uh-huh.
Did you see that?
I didn't see the news on that, no.
So that's interesting because, look, China obviously, is saying something to Russia behind the scenes that we're not hearing. And they put out a 12-point ceasefire plan and, put it out there for Russia to see. in full frontal view of everybody in the world that China is asking for a ceasefire. Okay. So I don't see an escalation. Okay. That's number one. Number two, just remember, Russia doesn't do anything that's not in Russia's best interest. So if you think, or if anybody in this audience thinks, that Russia is going to launch some nuclear holocaust, some apocalyptic, launch, that's not good for Russia. They wouldn't survive either. So that's something you should just take off the table.
Okay. One last thing, maybe Musk, Elon, and Putin, the relationship, as far as this war and him being able to control satellites.
So, what are you saying? What are you positing here about Elon?
That influences the war and it can swing it into Russia's favor. Does Musk having that ability to control satellites?
If he turns off Starlink, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they would lose, internet connectivity.
Yeah. I guess maybe I'm speaking from a worried stance, but I enjoy listening to you. I love you, and thank you so very much.
Mm-hmm. So I just, listen, you guys have got to realize that in this particular scenario, there is right and there is wrong. Okay? And just being a country and minding your own business and going about having elections and building an economy and farming and supplying the world with wheat and being Europe's breadbasket is not a crime. And if somebody comes and attacks you, when that's what you're doing, you do have the right to self-defense. I mean, that's just a give me. But out here in this country, you have people who are pro-Putin because they have the same warped idea, which is why we're showing you about the extremism in the United States, why we're showing you about, that there is a white supremacist, growing movement in this country that aims to do and has done violence in this country. Because you need to understand that there is a portion, albeit small, in this country that agrees with Vladimir Putin's psychotic imperialistic vision of a Soviet white Christian Europe. And they would like to see, they would like to do their part. Let's put it that way. And they would like to contribute to that here. They would like to get rid of certain populations in the United States. And so that's why I kept telling you during the whole Black Lives Matter movement that we're all black now. Everybody has to understand that we're being treated, those of us who know right from wrong, those of us who know self-determination is a right, that democracy is a preferred way to self-govern from, separate and apart from dictatorship or oligarchy or fascism or autocratic nations, that our way, while it's chaotic, while it produces, unintended consequences, while it's messy, sometimes it gets loud, sometimes it gets rude, there's still hope in a democracy. Once you go to autocracy, or once people are not allowed to sing, or once people are not allowed to listen to music, or once people are, kept from getting any book that they wish to read, or once people are told that it's Jews that are doing it to you, or people are believing it's the gay culture that's doing something bad to your nation, and you're ready to attack that. You're ready to go to war over that. You have lost hope. You've created hell is what you've done. And the reason why hell is hell, the reason why war is hell, is because there is no hope in that environment. And that is what autocrats and oligarchs and dictators and, closed societies seek to do. They want to drain all hope from the people that live there. They want to drain aspiration. They want to drain, from the people the ability to educate themselves, to choose another way, or to choose the way that they are existing. And currently, they could choose that, but they don't want choice. They don't want any choice. And here in the United States, the Republican Party is very busy attacking choices. All choices. Any choice. Reproductive choice, the choice to live openly gay, the choice to be black. Well, it's not a choice. The choice to be Jewish. Well, it's not a choice. They would like to remove all that choice to make it nice and neat and clean. But it would also be hopeless. We would create a Soviet Christian Slavic empire that is completely without hope for the future, for your children, for the next generation or the generation after that. But that's kind of where the Republican Party is. It's kind of why the Republican Party and Putin are, agreeable to each other. It's why they get along so well. Russia really was an evil empire.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, I don't know if you know who Scott Adams is. I don't think you'd recognize him, by the way he looks or anything like that. But he is the guy who draws the cartoon strip Dilbert. This man's work appears in about 2,000 newspapers. He's a syndicated cartoonist. Okay, his syndicator seems to be Andrews McMeel syndication, okay, and they're in Kansas City, Missouri, and he decided that he had something to say to Twitter. I guess it was yesterday. So this is the guy who draws Dilbert, and his need to tell you something.
So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll. That's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the away. Wherever you have to go, just get away. Because there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low black population, because unfortunately, there's a high correlation between the density. And this is according to Don Lemon, by the way. So here I'm just quoting Don Lemon when he notes that when he lived in a mostly black neighborhood, there were a bunch of problems that he didn't see in white neighborhoods. So even Don Lemon sees a big difference in your own quality of living based on where you live and who's there. So I think it makes no sense whatsoever as a white citizen of America to try to help black citizens anymore. It doesn't make sense. It's no longer a rational impulse. And so I'm gonna back off from being helpful to black America, because it doesn't seem like it pays off. Like, I've been doing it all my life, and the only outcome is I get called a racist. That's the only outcome. It makes no sense to help black Americans if you're white. It's over. Don't even think it's worth trying. Totally not trying.
So he wonders why people would call him a racist, and this is his view about sharing a neighborhood with people who have more melanin. Really? And so he says this on the Twitter, okay, that he's done with black people. It doesn't pay for him to be with black people. It doesn't pay for, he lives in San Francisco. I mean, poor San Francisco, you have to breathe the same air as he does. But this is a man who obviously he's a businessman. Okay, he's educated. He's on the Twitter promoting hatred and racism because he felt compelled to do that in his life. What the hell? And then he wonders why and if people will call him a racist. Does he deserve it? Yes, you do. I'm so sorry. But the thing that's really sickening is that he is syndicated in 2,000 newspapers. 2,000 newspapers. And so if you care about this at all, if you're looking for a call to action, something you could do to, I don't know, send a message to a guy like that about, what the benefit is of being a citizen of the United States of America and not discriminating based on somebody's skin color, that isn't a winning proposition, that's not something that's going to benefit you, that if you felt compelled to get on the Twitter and say crap like that there should be consequences for this kind of hatred being spewed by you, then I would suggest that you can go to dilbert.com/contact. That's pretty easy. And you can contact the help desk there. And you can let them know at Andrews McMeal Syndication at 1130 Walnut, Kansas City, Missouri, 64106, that you don't think that there is any place in America where this kind of hatred ought to be rewarded with cash. That this kind of serious division by race in the 21st century doesn't belong in a newspaper. And it certainly shouldn't be making money doing that. But that's what he decided to do. I was stunned by it. I was really shocked by it. I was like blown away by it because, a guy who's a cartoonist, okay, who documents cubicle life, because that's what Dilbert is. It's like office humor. It's like, cubicle life. It's like mocking corporate America in this weird, sort of stick figure-y way. That the man that draws that has such a racist attitude about living in a neighborhood that doesn't have a low black population because he doesn't feel safe.
And there's so many threads to pull here. What poll was that? What great works have you done for the black community? And your reaction to being called racist is, I'll show you and be racist.
So I have this funny feeling that he's trying to jump into the podcasting business as the newspaper business goes south, and that he might be testing the water to see if he can draw an audience to him based on this white supremacist attitude of his. I have no idea. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why he felt compelled to put that on the air. I don't understand what prompted him to declare that he's not going to, quote unquote, help black people because it doesn't pay. I don't even know what that means.
Did he think Dilbert is so funny and it just cannot be discarded by anyone? It's essential to American life that I can say whatever I want and they won't cancel Dilbert, baby.
No, I don't know that that's the motivation. I think the motivation is more like, hey, is there an audience out there for my brand of white supremacy? Is there an audience out there for my kind of hatred? Can I make money doing that? Since the newspaper industry isn't as profitable as it used to be, maybe I want to do something else. And so maybe I put this out there to see, who would respond positively to me saying this every single day. Like, where is my next opportunity? Because I believe he has an MBA. I do think he's a business guy. I know that he's been interviewed by Harvard Business School many times. But honestly, I can't for the life of me understand what is poisoning America in this manner. Like, why is it so profitable to be somebody who says stuff like that now? Why is it, okay? And why is there absolutely no, consequence for saying stuff like this? Why is it profitable to say stuff like this? Or why does he feel that it's profitable to say stuff like this? What is the deal with anti-Semitism? What is the deal with the Proud Boys? What is the deal with the, Charlottesville? What is the deal with, Jews will not replace us? What is the deal with the tiki torches? What is the deal with the 3%ers? What is the deal with the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and all that? Why is everybody so free now to be a cockroach? Why are they coming crawling out of the woodwork now? What is the deal? What is actually incentivizing this? Because my best guess is that we are a selfie society and that it is, an outrage machine the social media has become. I remember when the social media used to be about sharing family photos. That's how freaking old I am. I remember when the Facebook was a way to find old classmates. I remember when I found my next door neighbor from Brooklyn, where I left when I was, 11 years old. I remember, being able to rekindle relationships with people that I wished I had contact information for, but I didn't. And then all of a sudden there was Facebook, and it was a way to, send, photos. It was a way to communicate, hey, I missed you. I'm so glad you're back in my life. Now it's become a rage machine. Now it's become who can say the most authentically awful thing, because that will get you clicks and eyeballs.
As soon as their racist leader started saying what was banging around in their pea brains, I think that gave the permission.
But why is that? Why is that the way that he chooses as a very wealthy, well-situated San Franciscan, okay? Why is that the way he chose to appear on social media? And I gotta believe that this man with an MBA thinks it's profitable. And that is why we have to clean up our own backyard.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes.